I'm going to start with this. St. Martin has to contribute for the next 30 years, 2.08 million guilders to cover the policyholders. And we expect that the 2.08 million will come from the glitter, from the dividends. So I'm going to use my pen, from the dividends that we get from central bank. Now here's the kicker, right? In the last 5 years, I believe that we got dividends paid out once from the central bank, and it was less than 2.08 million guilders. So I find it like glitter, like magic, that we are going to be getting dividends equivalent to 2.08 million, which is how we're going to pay into the policyholder every year. So that's why glitter, magic, fairy doesn't really feel believable to me. But then what I've done is I put the little gold pin of the Parliament of St. Martin in front of the glitter, because I probably will be reminded by someone that central bank sold some of our gold, and they invested that gold, and based on the return that we get, if the investment works out, we're going to use that money in there. Notice it's not real gold. Then this is the ideal situation where the dividends coming from central bank is how we're going to cover the policyholders. But if that doesn't pan out because it's eerie and magic, and I don't know, because we didn't really get that in the last 5 years, then there's a resolution fund that comes from, this is how the policyholders are going to be paid, which is monies coming out of the resolution fund. And if this resolution fund is depleted, so that's the money that's right there right now in Ennia. If there's no money in the resolution fund, then that means that St. Martin has to find money to put into the resolution fund from their budget. Now, right now, we're in a budget debate. We're in central committee meeting. Before we go to the public meeting of a budget debate, we had to cut 32 million from it. So looking at our budget, there's really not a lot of wiggle room in there. In fact, we're making so many cuts that the cuts are across education, it's across some healthcare related in the Ministry of Public Health, it's across the Ministry of TEAT, it's across justice, it's everywhere. So getting money from our budget to go fill the resolution fund because we don't get money from dividends, do you see where I'm going with this, right? It's very hard to believe for me. Now, if we do not have money from our budget to supplement the resolution fund because we didn't have dividends, because we didn't have enough dividends to pay out to the policyholders, there's something here, which is the hot sauce, right? The Matux, the peak facility. And the reason I chose this is because if we go in, so a peak facility is like overdraft, line of credit, right? If there's no money here to pay for the policyholders, we have to access the peak facility, which comes at a massive price, a massive cost. And these are where the costs were in the original agreement, which is what now they said is the potential savings in it. But I want to give you a little bit of reality. We have not gotten dividends paid out to us equal to 2 million a year in the last 5 years, which is why I think this scenario is very unlikely, which means that the resolution funds as it stands now with the monies in there is going to have to be used. But this money means that St. Martin has to put in money in the resolution fund whenever they have money, but we really haven't had money for a long time because we have to make a lot of changes in the way that we do business of the people. So then we're going to still go to the budget, which is a lean, mean budget, hardly any wiggle room to put money in here, which I can guarantee you we're going to be at this peak facility, which means every time we access this peak facility, it comes at a massive price, which means that the savings of 37 million that we're talking about is very unlikely, unless we win the lottery, I think. So what I wanted to say is, while I may not have made certain people happy in government, I made a decision that was in the protection of the people of this country. I made a decision that with my financial limited background, I thought was in the best interest of the persons of St. Martin, because if we have, God forbid, we have a hurricane, we are limited with our resources, which will all be put to handling any natural disaster, handling any sort of COVID-like situation before we can do anything here, which means that for sure, I can guarantee I'm going to be accessing this peak facility. Every time we come into a situation like this, we hear that everything is linked with each other, and if you don't handle the Ennia situation, then we can't guarantee you the low interest rate. And this is what I'm talking about, is our renegotiation with the Netherlands, because we are very grateful. We're able to get financing from the Netherlands when we dealt with COVID and any other issue beforehand. And it comes at a very low interest rate. And that's why I said early on that I really do believe that this decision to bail Ennia out came because it was linked to either low interest rates or high interest rates. And that is not fair when all of this information isn't given to the public in a manner that they could digest it, or even to the persons in Parliament in a manner that they can digest it. This is not about voting along coalition lines. It's about what we can realistically handle here. And what I will never do, if I have the choice, is tie my country further into debt without thinking of the entire ramifications. And if you're living in St. Martin now, we are not only dealing with this Ennia debacle, we are dealing with a GB load shedding issue, which means that currently in our budget debate, we are also discussing having to put an additional 75 million into the budget related to government potentially purchasing generators for GB, whereas in the past, GB purchased their generators on their own. So this is also very, very risque for me. We can cover that another day. But what I can say is, at this moment, the decisions that are being made will put us further in debt with the person that we borrow money from the most, which is the only person that we borrow money from, which is the Netherlands, pretty much most of the time. And we've extended our financial supervision of this country. So I just feel that we're going closer to where we will always be under supervision if we're not ever trying to say that we can handle this on our own. And I sometimes wonder whether this sort of pressure came on us because if you had 27,000 or 30,000 policyholders all rush to the Netherlands because they don't have their pensions, whether or not a country could take a rush of 30,000 persons coming there. So food for thought.